Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. So, this is going to be the first video in a while that I'm not editing. Hooray. Or hopefully I'm not anyways. But anyways, hello, welcome. Welcome to our final chapters of You're Not Like Them by Luffy Gear 5. This will be chapters 12 and the epilogue. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started. Chapter 12. Dazai sprinted up the few steps to the hotel entrance, Chuya and Octogawa on his heels. His heart thumped in his chest, a panic he'd only felt once before, grating his nerves. "We're coming, Atsushi. Please, just be okay." Walking hurriedly to the front desk, Dazai leaned down on the surface, staring down at the receptionist. "Where is he?" The woman's eyes went wide. I don't... Excuse me? Dazai gritted his teeth. "The person who's been kidnapping all the children is here in the hotel. You must know who I'm talking about." "I'm afraid..." Slamming his fist on the surface, Dazai leant forward. "I would tell if I were you." The woman swallowed before nodding. A sudden smirk pulled at her lips. He's a kind man, you know. We've gotten quite close. I agree with him, of course. I think your friend might find him quite convincing, though." "Of course she works with him. I thought there was something off the second I saw her." Dazai forced a calming breath. "Who are you to him?" "His suitor, if you would put a name to it. Sometimes in his company. I'm sure a man like you understands. Am I right, Dazai-san?" Dazai chuckled softly. It was a discordant sound. He pulled his gun from his sheath, laying it on the desk, nozzle aligned with her chest. "How would he feel about losing you?" The woman's smoke dropped from her face. She grimaced. "Fine, the basement. I know he'll easily be able to deal with you lot. I would send a message to your loved ones if I were you." Dazai straightened up with a nod before lifting his gun and firing. A burst of blood splattered to the paper behind her, her head dropping backwards as her body flopped limply onto the chair. "Come on," Chuya nudged him. "We don't know how much time we have left." Glancing at the redhead and Octogawa, Dazai quickly led the way, traversing through a few corridors before reaching a doorway. He paused. Glancing through the glass panel, he frowned at the staircase, which led to a few doors. Dazai pushed it open, quietly descending the steps. A soft echo of the others followed behind. The doors lead to the other maintenance offices or cupboards. Nothing of any significance. He turned his gaze forward, seeing this next step of stairs beyond it. He moved to open it. I'll help you. Dazai froze, the familiar voice just audible through the door. "Atsushi, do you promise?" another voice asked. There was a pause. "Yes." He is stalling for time. Dazai glanced behind him to the mafiosos. "The kidnapper is down there with him," he reported lowly. Chuya nodded. "What are we waiting for then?" "What if he had bombs?" Octogawa asked. "What if he's tied Jinko up just like he did with the girl?" Dazai frowned. "Well, it's better to go in and save him then." Without pause, Dazai pushed open the door and slowly stepped down the stairs, making sure his footsteps were heard. He pushed a smile to his face as he surveyed the room, locking gazes with the unfamiliar man before him, a nervous-looking Atsushi opposite. What is it that Atsushi could help you with? Maybe we could be of use." "Dazai-san," Atsushi said, his voice a combination of shock and relief. The man looked between them before turning to Atsushi, glaring furiously. "You tricked me." Atsushi frowned, waving his hand placatingly. No, I didn't. Let me. You betrayed me." Before Dazai could blink, Dai had drawn a knife and plunged it into Atsushi's chest. Dazai felt his breath stutter, a strange surreal sensation falling over him. He vaguely heard Chuya and Octagawa shouting, but all he could do was watch. Atsushi stumbled backwards, clutching at the knife in his chest. His eyes were wide in shock and panic, hands trying to push the man away as he pushed the knife deeper. A splatter of blood specked his lips. Atsushi! Dazai didn't even realize his own voice as he drew his gun, aiming to fire at the stranger. His bullet hit the man in the shoulder, Chuya already there, tackling him to the ground. The man's grip on the knife tightened. A faint squelch pounded as the blade was pulled free. Dazai ran forward, grabbing Atsushi's shoulders as the boy stumbled. Atsushi, hold on. Atsushi, just hold on. Atsushi brought a bloodied hand up to grip Dazai's white shirt. He swallowed, pained. The bombs have a second trigger. Dai has it. They're behind the cupboard over there. I don't know. Dazai straightened up, looking in the direction Atsushi had directed. Okay, hold on. Sprinting over, he took a brief search before he finds the mess of wires. Taking in the collection, he ran back to Octagawa. Take them, use your ability. He looked back around, seeing Chuya still had the man pinned to the ground. A low red glow of his ability covered his body. Dazai fostered his hands, lighting the nozzle of his gun with the man's head. Octagawa, you ready? Yes, Dazai-san. Dazai stared at the man, the other starting to laugh, his gaze shifting past him. Dazai squeezed the trigger. The man's body fell limp, a bloody mess of imploded bone and flesh where his face used to be. A muted explosion sounded from behind him, but Dazai didn't spare it a look. He pulled the trigger again and again and again. Chu's hand fell in his wrist. That's enough, Dazai. Jinko? Atsushi-san. No. Atsushi-san. Dazai spun around, watching as a young boy sprinted from inside a cupboard. His gaze shifted. He then shifted his gaze to the sound of shallow breathing. The breaths gasping and hiding. I don't know. It's just a hard time breathing. Atsushi clutched at his shirt, the once white shirt now dark red. His knees buckled beneath him, and Atsushi launched to catch him as he fell. Atsushi. Dazai carefully lowered him to the ground, pulling Atsushi's hands away from the wound. A rush of dark fabric quickly wrapped itself around the boy's chest, his pain gasps filling the air. Dazai glanced at Octagawa, the Ravenet looking tense as he used his ability, then returned his gaze to the boy in his arms. Atsushi-san! The boy was suddenly beside him, tears pouring down his cheeks. Dazai watched as the boy grabbed one of Atsushi's bloody hands, mind barely comprehending the scene. Atsushi panted shallowly. He stared up at Dazai, eyes shifting from his own to the tiger's. Sakuto-san. Atsushi said softly. It's okay. Everything will be okay. I promised you, remember? Atsushi-san, the boy cried. Atsushi weakly gripped his hand tighter. Sakuto-san, can you do me a favor? Can you close your eyes for me? There was a moment's hesitation before the boy complied, squeezing his eyes shut tightly. Atsushi smiled, looking back up at Dazai. Dazai quickly pushed his brain into action. Chuya, get Yoshino. Where? At the agency. Go. Now. Dazai didn't register the crashing of brick as Chu sped away. He focused on Atsushi, trying to work out how to save him. Dazai-san? It's okay, Atsushi. You'll be okay. Don't talk. You need to save your energy. Wait, Atsushi, please just listen to me. Dazai stared into Atsushi's arms, the irises still shifting with his ability. Dazai quickly placed a hand on the boys, stopping the action. Atsushi looked up at him steadily. Did all the kids get out safely? Dazai frowned. I gave them the card to my room. They should all be there. Okay, we can check after, okay? I'm sure they're safe. Just let's focus on you. I want to tell you something. Atsushi interrupted. Dazai ducked his head, shaking it. No, Atsushi, don't. Dazai-san. That's enough, Atsushi. Stop talking. Dazai-san, look at me. Atsushi's voice was soft but firm as Dazai met his gaze. He found Atsushi to be watching him. My ability isn't working. My body can't keep up with this. He quickly continued before Dazai could intervene. I won't have time to say anything if you don't let me. Dazai felt dryness climb in his throat. He shook his head again, an unfamiliar wetness collecting in his eyes. Thank you, Dazai-san. No, Dazai gritted his teeth. You can't do this. Thank you for giving me people I can care for. Maybe they also care for me too. Dazai hated the smile on Atsushi's lips. He hated the helplessness he felt. He wanted Atsushi to stop, but Dazai found himself listening, and for that he hated himself even more. Thank you for giving me a place in the world, and for giving me a place to stay, and clothes of my own, and food I'd never tried before. Dazai felt a wet drop on his cheek, and hurriedly wiped it away. That's enough, Atsushi, stop it. You can't do this to me. He hated how his voice broke. Atsushi's eyes go hazy, his breaths more and more shallow. I wasn't useless to you, was I? Dazai shook his head. How could you ever been ni, Dazai-san? Atsushi blinked slowly. I have a favor to ask. The boy shifted his gaze to his left, the young boy whose eyes were still squeezed shut, and gripping Atsushi's hand. Could you look after him too? What? Atsushi's breathing started to become uneven, eyes slipping down his face. He gasped painfully. Ni, Dazai-san. He coughed more, blood splattering his lips. Thank you for protecting me. He met his gaze, a smile put on his face. He seemed to push the words next out of his mouth, his next words from his mouth. Protecting an orphan. Atsushi's body went limp, chest stilling. Dazai stared at his eyes, the sightless eyes staring back at him. He shook him. Atsushi? He shook him again, head lolling around limply on the ground. Atsushi? Tears dropped down his cheeks, and Dazai's chest ached. He pulled Atsushi upright, holding him close, the warmth on his body still lingering in his arms. Dazai listened for a heartbeat. Silence answered him. Protect the orphans. Dazai gripped Atsushi tighter, jaw clenching. I failed him, Otasaku. Atsushi said those words. He said them, but I did nothing for him. I didn't do anything. His voice was rough, throat tight. I didn't do anything for him. He deserves so much better. I took him to the agency, but it was the others who welcomed him. Kunikita who trained him, Kyoko who gave him a family, and he took her in. I did nothing. Dazai held Atsushi down in his arms. Atsushi's eyes still staring at him. Atsushi didn't have the heart to close them. Why did he say that? Akutagawa shifted beside him, moving to crouch as he carefully unraveled his ability from Atsushi's chest. The bloody wound now clear to see, with the multiple scars from Atsushi's past evident on his body. The Ravenet knelt, gently closing Atsushi's eyes. Because he was kind and you're the first person to help him. He looked over at Dazai. His life was torture and you're the first one to show him kindness. Dazai met the other's gaze, recalling all his oaths of the mafioso. If I was his kindness, he swallowed, looking down at the boy beside him, tear stains on his face as his eyes squeezed sharp. With his eyes squeezed sharp, Dazai nodded. I'll do better. Sakuto felt Atsushi's hand go limp, but he didn't want to open his eyes, but he did. Atsushi's hand was going cold under his hand. His eyes were closed too. There was blood all over him, but old scars riddled his skin. Sakuto stared at the burns along the young man's ribs, recognizing them from his own side. Atsushi-san understood me because he went through the same. He looked back to his face. He knew, but he had to ask. Why his eyes closed? The two men looked at him. Sakuto felt his arms trembling. Why isn't he waking up? A sudden faint blue ball rose from Atsushi's chest. Sakuto stared at it, eyes tears stopping. The light hovered for a moment before it shot towards him. Sakuto didn't even have time to scream as the immense pain seared through his body. He screamed, slight dimming as he fell to black. Dazai stared at the blue light. What is... It suddenly shot away, absorbing into the boy's chest. The boy screamed, writhing on the ground as he collapsed before stilling. Dazai felt his breath catch. As he watched, two locks of the boy's hair change colour, one to white and the other to black, contrasting the deep red of his own. Dazai gasped, That's like Atsushi. That's... Carefully letting Atsushi to the ground, Dazai kept a hand of his hand as he moved over to the boy. He studied his hair for a moment before gently shaking him. The boy roused. Dazai swallowed past his dry throat. What's your name, kid? The boy frowned, looking confused. Sakuto. Oda Sakuto. A burst of shock filled his chest. Dazai stared at the boy before looking to Atsushi. He gripped his hand tighter. Ni Atsushi. You gave me a second chance. Thank you. I'll keep your promise on my life. Both to you and Odasaku. I'll do my best for the boy. You'll see. My very best. I'll do everything I should have done for you, Atsushi. For him, I promise. I'll look after you too. I'll look after you, Odasaku. Epilogue. Dazai couldn't describe his emotions at the best of times, but the grief and loss he felt upon arriving back to the agency with a young orphan boy instead of Atsushi was a feeling he'd never be able to describe in his lifetime. The boy, Odasaku, had quickly fallen to fever after gaining Atsushi's ability, and was being treated by a grieving Yoshino, who'd been too late to the scene to save their white-haired companion. Family. He wasn't a companion. Chuya and Akutagawa had taken it upon themselves to escort Atsushi's body. Dazai couldn't stand to be in its presence, the guilt overpowering the disrespect of his actions. He, all at once, hated how the body became an object rather than a person. It, not him. He hated how he never noticed that difference before. The brunette glanced at the rearview mirror, watching Akutagawa drive behind. He looked away quickly, steering into the agency's car park and switching off the engine. The resulting silence was deafening. Dazai! He looked up, Dazai watching a confused but concerned Kunikida sprinting out of the building. Fukuzawa and Kyoko close behind, the rest following shortly. He didn't want this. Kunikida ran up to the car, pulling the door open. Dazai, are you okay? The blonde looked over at him before shifting his gaze back toward Yoshino held Odasaku. Kunikida frowned. Who's that? Where's Atsushi? A piercing scream cut through the air. Dazai felt his grip on the steering wheel tighten. Kyoko didn't stop, her voice going hoarse as Akutagawa and Chuya stepped out of the car behind. He felt Kunikida look at him, the blonde going pale. Atsushi, where's Dazai? No, jeez, no. Dazai, where's Atsushi? The blonde shook his head, breath stuttering. He's dead. Kunikida stepped away, arms dropping to his side in shock. He stared at the body, disbelief written on his face. It morphed into anger. What happened? Dazai looked away, forcing himself to control the emotions flooding in his chest. He protected the kidnapped children. He got ill, his ability stopped working properly. Dazai paused, looking at the blonde. I couldn't save him. Tears were running down Kunikida's cheeks, the anger still in his eyes. Is the man who killed him dead? Dead? Yes, I killed him. The blonde nodded, wiping his tears away wiping the tears away quickly as Moore hurried to join them. Who's the kid? Dazai glanced at the rearview mirror. His name's Oda Sakuto. He's an orphan. Atsushi asked me to look after him before. Dazai looked back to Kunikida. Atsushi's ability went to him. Kunikida frowned in shock. The ability transferred? Apparently, Dazai sighed. It's a promise. Another one. He hesitated. Kunikida, I can't do this by myself. I barely did anything for Atsushi, but I promised to do better. Please help me do it better this time, Kunikida. The blonde stared at him, shock written on his face, in the lines of his face. He nodded slowly. You'll have my help, no matter what you do. You will hold yourself to that promise, and I will make sure of that. The boy is Atsushi's legacy. Your promise, your responsibility. You will love and care for the boy like he deserves. Kunikida nodded. And I will help you, Dazai. You won't be alone. Dazai felt tears run down his cheeks as he looked at Kunikida. The blonde stood tall, reminding him much of how Odasaku was, caring but strong, like a brother. I won't be alone, Dazai mumbled to himself. He looked back at Sakuto before shifting his gaze to where Kyoko was cradling Atsushi's body. I'll do my best, I promise. Okay, guys, that was the very last chapter of You're Not Like Them. I loved this fic, and it was so sad. It was angst. It was angst with no happy ending. Well, no, it wasn't a happy ending. Let's just admit, that was not a happy ending. That was just angst upon angst upon angst, and no comfort at the very end. Anyway, yeah. I hope you guys like this. I love this fic. I love it so much. But if you have any more fics recommendations, please let me know. Because either Bungo Stray Dogs, My Hero Academia, Haikyuu, or Blue Lock, I am open to all of them. Anyway, hope to see you later. Take care of yourself. After that really sad chapter, make sure to take care of yourself, and I'll see you later. Bye.